In the face of a terminal illness, could one accept a near-perfect copy, sharing identical DNA and memories, to assume their place among loved ones? Could one reconcile with the knowledge that their partner, though indistinguishable in appearance, is a replicant? The Swan Song, a poignant lament sung before death, is said to be a moving testament. Before passing, the swan offers a final, mournful hymn in gratitude for life. Our protagonist, in his current state, resembles such a swan, nearing the end of his journey. Cameron Turner is a caring family man living in a near future where technology has reached new heights. He was recently diagnosed with a terminal illness, which is why he began to explore cloning technology. There's a facility run by Dr. Scott that creates a perfect copy of you and gives it your memories so the clone can replace you when you die. Cameron has been going there to provide DNA samples and get his clone ready, but he still can't decide. One night, driving home after another memory session, he gets a message from Dr. Scott saying his latest scans show rapid decline and he should decide quickly. Cameron ignores it for now and enters his house, greeting the dog and checking on his wife, Poppy, and son Corey before going to the bathroom, where he has a seizure. Since his wife doesn't know about his illness, he closes the door so she doesn't see him struggle alone. The next day, he meets with Dr. Scott to see her facility's living area where clients stay before they die and the clone takes their place. After making him sign a contract saying the clone will never be woken up if he changes his mind, she introduces him to Dalton, a psychologist and lead technician in the control room. The rest of the work around the house is done by eyes. Next, Dalton asks him to deactivate the cameras on his contacts and watch before he can enter the room where his clone is sleeping. Although sleeping isn't quite right because the clone who Dr. Scott calls Jack for ease has never been awake yet, it is still an empty shell. Cameron watches it with both awe and shock, hesitant to touch it without the doctor's permission. The experience is too unsettling for Cameron, and he decides against going through with it. He returns home and continues his everyday routine, with a wife and son he loves in a design job he hates but needs for income. Cameron's real passion is art. One afternoon, he remembers a conversation he had with Poppy and her twin Andre about the clones, and recalls his wife saying that as long as she couldn't tell the difference, it wouldn't bother her. This leads Cameron to contact Dr. Scott again, who assures him that all clones have their memories of the facility erased, so they never know they are copies. To ease him into the concept, she tells him about the last clone they sent and how he can meet her to clear his doubts. The woman is called Kate, and she works as a clerk, so Cameron visits her shop and pretends to be a customer to interact with her. Conversation is completely normal, and Cameron can't tell Kate is a clone, neither can her daughter, who is also there and seems unaware this isn't her real mom. When Cameron returns home, he breaks down when his wife reminds him they will be parents again in 7 months, realizing he won't be able to meet the baby. He briefly considers telling her the truth, but he can't bring himself to do it, and makes up an excuse about being nervous about fatherhood again. Afterward, he calls Dr. Scott and tells her he's decided to go through with it. Cameron returns to the facility, where he meets the real Kate and tells her about meeting her clone. They go for a walk together, where he mentions her daughter looked very happy. They discover they even have the same oncologist, just like the patient before them. Then he calls Poppy to tell her he'll be away for a week for a special job. After changing into new clothes provided by the facility, Cameron is sedated for 6 hours, during which his memories will be copied into Jack. Once the procedure is done, the next step is to check their mind synchronization. This means Cameron vividly relives some of his most important memories, like meeting Poppy, their first kid, and Andre's death. After several synchronization rounds, it's finally time to wake up Jack. They put the clone and the original in separate rooms to give them time to adjust. Dr. Scott explains to Jack that a freckle on his hand is the only difference between him and the original. It's there in case he needs help remembering. Cameron spends the evenings calling his family. One night, while playing video games online with Corey, he has a seizure. He barely manages to end the call before passing out. The next day, he walks with Kate again and expresses his fear of dying suddenly without saying goodbye to his family. Afterward, it's finally time for him to properly meet Jack, who is talking to Dr. Scott about Poppy with perfect memory recall. The two stare at each other for a while before Jack admits how nervous he is about the whole thing. Cameron still can't fully grasp the concept, so he's asked to watch while Dr. Scott interviews Jack to check his memories. Cameron is shocked to see that Jack not only remembers everything perfectly, but also shares Cameron's feelings about those memories. After another quick chat with Kate, whose health is worsening, Dr. Scott continues questioning Jack, this time with Cameron in the room. Jack talks about the hard times after Poppy lost Andre and his recurring dreams. He's so good at expressing what Cameron has been feeling and ignoring that, Cameron loses his sense of self and starts answering too. After sharing lunch and mirroring each other's eating habits, they call Poppy. Cameron is allowed to watch, but Jack is the only one speaking to her, and he does so effortlessly. Seeing another man so easily accepted by his wife, who can't tell the difference, upsets Cameron. He ends the call, deciding he dislikes the whole process. He and Jack argue, and even shove each other, disagreeing on what to do next. Cameron only leaves after feeling ill, deciding he wants to go home and cancel the clone swap. Later, the two men discuss their fears about Poppy finding out, but it's not enough to change Cameron's mind. Even with his poor health, he wants to see his family. When it's time for Cameron to leave, they put cameras on his contact lenses so Jack can observe his family life and learn from it. However, Cameron doesn't even reach his front door. He has a seizure in the middle of the street, briefly losing consciousness. Dr. Scott sends a car to pick him up and bring him back to the facility. Cameron resists, but has no choice if he doesn't want to die in front of his family. Cameron falls unconscious again on the way back. Dr. Scott puts him to bed with strong medication while telling Dalton to send Jack in the morning, because he is ready. Jack is given Cameron's clothes and accessories and told by Dr. Scott that he'll have a 2-week trial with the family. If all goes well, he'll return to have his memories of the cloning procedure removed. He'll also wear contact lenses with cameras so they can monitor his progress. When Jack arrives at the house, everything goes smoothly. Poppy and Corey can't tell the difference and interact with him normally. His memories help him blend in seamlessly. The only issue is that the dog doesn't recognize him and barks constantly. Meanwhile, Cameron wakes up 24 hours later and panics when he learns Jack has been sent. He wasn't ready to leave his family, but Dr. Scott reminds him starkly that he is dying. From then on, Cameron spends most of his days watching videos from Jack's perspective, only pausing to visit Kate as her health fails. When she dies, her ashes are scattered in the lake. Jack starts taking off his contacts more often, even outside of bedtime. Dr. Scott claims it's for privacy, but Cameron grows paranoid about hidden motives. After a bad dream about Jack mistreating Corey, Cameron decides he's had enough. He steals an old, broken watch they didn't give Jack, and sneaks out of the facility at night, using the watch to activate a boat back to the mainland. Arriving home hours later, he heads straight to his office. He sees the art Jack has been creating and his chat conversations with Poppy, all perfectly normal and domestic. The noise wakes Jack, who arrives and shows surprising understanding of Cameron's presence. Feeling sympathetic, Jack allows him one last night with his family. They swap clothes, scaring the dog when it sees them together. While Jack hides in the closet, Cameron wakes Corey and takes him to the kitchen. He teaches him to eat edamame, Poppy's favorite beer snack. Cameron cries while hugging his son, and after putting him back to bed, he joins Poppy in their bedroom. She consoles him when she sees him upset, and they both agree to name their new baby Andre after her brother. They cuddle as tightly as they can, and once Poppy falls asleep, Cameron leaves the room and switches clothes with Jack again. Before returning to the facility, he shakes Jack's hand and thanks him for everything. Cameron spends his time drawing and talking to new clients about the cloning process. 2 weeks later, Dr. Scott confirms that Jack's memories of the facility are gone, and he fully believes he's Cameron, which is a relief to the real Cameron. But before his memory was fixed, Jack recorded one last video for Cameron. He asks Poppy to look into his eyes and tell him she loves him, which she does. Cameron watches, tears streaming down his face.